Listen to me very carefully. You are seconds away from entering the most dangerous mental space you will ever inhabit. Dangerous, not because of the words spoken here, but because once this psychological filter locks into place inside your mind, you can never turn it off. You will walk into a crowded room, and you will smell desperation from 50 paces. You will sit in silence while others rage, and you will feel a cold, sovereign clarity that borders on terrifying. This is not self-help. This is not online comfort food. This is the radical, systematic dismantling of human psychological warfare. Stop whatever you are doing right now, because everything you have ever been taught about handling disrespect, insults, and betrayal is a lie. Most people think standing up for yourself means reacting, exploding, or proving someone wrong. That is not strength. That is a rehearsed flinch disguised as confidence, the frantic dance of a puppet whose strings are being pulled by someone who doesn't even respect them. Today, for the first time, we break the strings. We are stripping away 2,000 years of emotional conditioning using the most brutally lethal philosophy ever forged in the fires of human history. We are going back to Roman battlefields drenched in mud and blood. We are entering slave quarters where men chained to walls learned how to make their own masters tremble, not with swords, but with absolute mental invincibility. We are opening the private late-night journals of emperors who commanded millions, yet had to fight the darkest, most vicious war right inside their own chest. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, Cato. These men were not sitting in cozy classrooms sipping tea. They were targeted by public humiliation, family betrayals, political executions, and psychological ambushes every single day. And they discovered something the modern world is too soft to understand. They didn't search for clever comebacks. They didn't write passive-aggressive posts or rehearse arguments in the shower. They engineered an impenetrable internal fortress, a mental state so absolute that an insult loses its poison in mid-air, where manipulation completely suffocates for lack of oxygen, where another person's chaos can never cross your border without your explicit written permission. They achieved a level of emotional control so absolute that it terrified every tyrant, enemy, and manipulator who crossed their path. This journey consists of 10 distinct lessons. Each lesson is a scalpel, and each cut goes deeper than the last. If you close this before the end, you will walk away carrying the open wound, but leaving behind the cure. Make your choice right now. Either commit to this rewiring or go back to being a passive victim in everyone else's daily drama. Choose fast, because the people who want to drain your peace are already 3 moves ahead of you. Now let us begin. Lesson 1. Before you can neutralize an attack, you must understand what is actually taking place on the psychological battlefield. Right now, your perspective is inverted, and that single inversion is leaking your energy every hour of the day. Imagine Rome in the year 161 AD. Marcus Aurelius ascends the throne. He is now the most powerful human being on earth. 70 million souls bow to his command across an empire stretching from the rainy borders of Scotland to the scorching sands of Mesopotamia. He commands legions. He controls unimaginable wealth. Yet surrounding him every day are knife-wielding senators, corrupt generals, jealous family members, and whispering assassins. What does this ruler of the known world write in his private diary at dawn? He writes, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." Think about that. The Emperor of Rome knew he could not eliminate disrespect from the world. His power wasn't in stopping people from being vile. His genius was understanding what disrespect actually is. Disrespect is never a verdict on your worth. Disrespect is a confession of their disease. When a doctor sees a patient coughing up blood, the doctor doesn't take it personally. The doctor doesn't feel offended by the blood. The symptom is a direct reflection of the patient's decaying internal state. When someone throws a sarcastic remark at you, when they roll their eyes, when they interrupt you in a meeting or dismiss your presence, they are not revealing your flaw. They are displaying the fever of their own internal sickness. Epictetus understood this with a level of clarity that shatters modern fragility. Epictetus was born a slave. His owner was Epaphroditus, a sadist who tortured him for entertainment. Ancient history records that Epaphroditus once grabbed Epictetus's leg and began twisting it with iron tools. Epictetus looked at him without screaming, without pleading, and calmly said, "If you keep twisting, it will snap." The master twisted harder, and the bone shattered. Epictetus looked at his ruined leg, then looked his master in the eye and said quietly, "Did I not tell you it would break?" No rage, no psychological collapse. Why? Because Epictetus realized at the deepest level of his soul that his master's cruelty was not a statement about Epictetus's value as a human being. It was an undeniable declaration of his master's wretched, impoverished soul. Bring this into your life right now. You spend weeks building a project. You step into the conference room. 90 seconds in, a colleague cuts you off, trivializes your data, and drops a condescending joke at your expense to get a laugh from the room. Your blood boils, your throat tightens, every primal instinct screams at you to fire back. Stop. Look at what you cannot see in that moment. That colleague went home last night to a dying marriage. They are drowning in debt. They are terrified of being exposed as incompetent. Your preparation, your competence, your quiet confidence was a blinding mirror held up to their inadequacy. Their insult wasn't an attack on you. It was a violent, desperate gasp for air from a drowning soul who had to push your head underwater just to feel like they were still floating. This isn't about making excuses for toxic human beings. This is about absolute liberation. The moment you realize that disrespect is their confession, not your identity, the poison drops harmlessly to the floor. It arrives, and you stand unmoved. Not because you are holding back rage, but because you clearly see the truth. This was never about me. That realization is the first stone in your inner citadel. Lay it down today, and never let anyone tear it down. Lesson 2. There is a specific, quiet agony that wrecks human beings every day. It is not the pain of the insult itself. It is the shock of being caught off guard. And until you liquidate your naive expectations, you will remain emotionally defenseless. Stoics speak constantly of the dichotomy of control. But most people use this concept like a cheap inspirational quote. It doesn't ask for light-hearted positivity, nor does it ask for trust. It demands something cold, ruthless, and absolute. Zero illusion. In ancient Athens, there was a man named Diogenes. They called him the dog. He lived in a giant clay storage jar in the public marketplace, possessing one cloak, a wooden bowl, and zero filter. He lived in utter poverty to prove that human freedom requires no external permission. Alexander the Great, the man who conquered empires from Greece to India, marched into the city and decided to seek out this famous beggar. Alexander stood over Diogenes as he lay in the dirt, surrounded by imperial guards, and said, "Ask anything of me, and I shall grant it to you." Diogenes looked up at the ruler of the world, squinted, and said, "Yes. Step to the side. You're blocking my sunlight." Alexander's generals were furious, but Alexander stopped them, lowered his head, and whispered, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Why? Because Alexander, with all his horses, gold, and armies, was a hostage to the opinions of his generals and the fear of revolt. Diogenes owned nothing, expected nothing, and therefore could not be broken. Expectation is the ammunition you hand to your enemies. Every time you enter a room expecting people to be fair, kind, or rational, you hand that room a knife to stick into your chest. When those expectations are broken, the attack doesn't just hit your ego, it breaks your reality. You spiral because you believed the world owed you basic decency. The Stoic does not lower their standards for how they live. They strip away the childlike illusion that others will meet them. Picture this. You gather with your family or longtime friends. You share an achievement, and immediately that one relative, the one who has undercut you for years, makes a sharp, diminishing comment. Why does it sting every single time, even though they have done this 50 times before? Because every single time you walked through that door carrying a silent, fragile hope. Maybe this time they will validate me. Maybe this time they will be proud. That hope is not sweet. That hope is the trap. The Stoic steps into that house with total psychological clarity. They have already run the scenario in their mind hours ago. They have accepted the full reality of who these people are. And because they accepted reality in advance, when the sharp comment comes, it lands like rain on a granite cliff. This isn't cynicism. This is supreme strategic readiness. Before Spartan warriors went into battle, they didn't chant positive affirmations. They sat in silence and visualized every terrifying scenario: losing an arm, being surrounded, seeing their brothers fall. When the bloody chaos began, nothing shocked them. Nothing paralyzed their reactions. They had already survived the horror in their mind. Do this before your next critical interaction. Quietly run through the worst possible behavior the people in that room can demonstrate. Not to suffer, but to render yourself completely immune. That is the armor of zero expectation. Lesson 3. Every defense mechanism you have ever been taught is loud. A fiery comeback, a desperate defense, a heated argument, or a long text message explaining why you were right. Here is the truth about every loud weapon. It advertises your blood. The most destructive psychological weapon in history creates no sound waves whatsoever. Marcus Porcius Cato, Cato the Younger, was the most feared figure in the Roman Senate. He wasn't feared for military violence or wealth. He was feared because of a terrifying psychological discipline. He almost never reacted on command. Julius Caesar, the master orator, once launched an aggressive personal attack on Cato right in the middle of a Senate debate, trying to provoke him into an emotional outburst. Cato stood there, looked directly at Caesar, maintained eye contact for seconds of complete silence, and then slowly sat down, turning his attention to the next speaker as if Caesar were invisible. Caesar, who had conquered entire nations, was left standing there looking like an insecure child craving attention. Silence is not the absence of an answer. Silence is the ultimate answer. When you yell back, you hand them free material to twist. When you explain yourself, you hand them a blueprint of your insecurities. When you react, you confirm their strike hit a nerve. But when you respond with absolute, unbothered silence, you leave them isolated in their own toxic mess. Imagine a dinner or a meeting. Someone drops a rude, sharp remark aimed at embarrassing you in front of everyone. The room goes quiet, and everyone turns to see if you will snap or cringe. Most people pick one of two disastrous options. First, they fire back, and now two people are barking like dogs while the room enjoys the drama. Second, they offer a nervous laugh, shrink back, and spend 3 days replaying the humiliation in their head. The Stoic chooses the third path. You hold their gaze for 2 full seconds. No squinting, no fake smile, no anger. Just the cold, detached gaze of a scientist observing an insect. Then, without changing your breath, you look away and resume your sentence exactly where you left off. In that tiny silence, the balance of power flips completely. The entire room sees what just happened. An insecure person pulled an emotional alarm, and you didn't even flinch. Cato said, "I begin to speak only when I am certain what I am going to say is better than silence. If your reaction does not project absolute strength, close your mouth and let the silence destroy them." Lesson 4. Every step so far has built toward this specific tactical tool. Understanding their weakness, stripping away expectation, mastering silence, all of it prepares you to deploy a single psychological response. 7 words forged in the fires of Stoic philosophy. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Recognize that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." He realized that every toxic person is relying on subtext, hidden motives, and passive-aggressive cover. They hide behind jokes saying, "I was just kidding." They hide behind false concern saying, "I'm just trying to help you." When someone aims a disrespect vector at you, after the deliberate pause, after the silence, look them in the eye and ask with clinical curiosity, "Are you hoping for a reaction from me?" Let us analyze why this question completely dismantles a manipulator's attack. First, it acts as a high-powered spotlight. It drags their passive-aggressive tactic out of the shadows and dumps it on the table. The entire power of microaggression relies on deniability, and you just strip that away completely. Second, it is completely calm. You aren't raising your voice. You aren't defensive. You are asking a question like an investigator recording a fact. Third, it traps them entirely. If they say yes, they publicly admit to malicious intent. If they say no, they look foolish, stammering out excuses while everyone sees right through them. Picture your boss or coworker dropping a snide comment about your performance in front of the group. The room holds its breath. You set your pen down slowly. You look them in the eye and quietly say, "Are you hoping for a reaction from me?" Dead silence. They blink. They shift in their seat. They stammer, "No, no, just making an observation." You nod once, say, "Understood," and go right back to your notes. In under 10 seconds, without throwing a single insult, you re-established complete authority over the room. Practice this phrase until it becomes second nature. It is not a cheap trick. It is a stoic mirror that forces the attacker to consume their own toxic behavior. Lesson 5. You have been fed lies about anger your whole life. Society markets anger as power. Movies glorify the guy who smashes the furniture. Pop culture celebrates rage as strength. The Stoics knew the truth. Anger is an admission of weakness. Seneca the Younger was the chief advisor to Emperor Nero, a paranoid monster who killed his own mother and executed people over simple misunderstandings. To survive next to Nero, Seneca had to master his reactions completely. One slip of emotion meant an immediate death sentence. Seneca wrote an entire treatise called De Ira, or On Anger. His ultimate conclusion? Anger is an act of self-harm. It harms the person holding it far more than the target it is thrown at. Look at what anger actually costs you in real time. Your body floods with stress hormones. Your logical brain shuts down. Your perception narrows to a pinhole. You lose access to your intellect at the exact moment you need it most. Afterward, you spend hours replaying the moment in your head, coming up with imaginary arguments in the shower, telling the story to friends who don't care, letting that person live in your mind, rent-free, trashing your peace. Seneca asked, "What is more foolish than allowing your mind to be ruled by the actions of an idiot?" Imagine someone you trusted speaks behind your back. The betrayal is ugly and untrue, and it gets back to you. Your chest catches fire. You want to call them, text them, explode, ruin them. Here is what Seneca would whisper in your ear. Their betrayal was a reflection of their small, pathetic character. But your rage, if you yield to it, will turn their tiny attack into a long, drawn-out disaster that damages your mind far more than it ever hurts them. The Stoic response is not cold. It is surgical. When anger rises, do not pretend it isn't there. Name it immediately. I am experiencing anger. This is a physical sensation. It is data, not an order. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed. It does not get to decide how you act. That choice belongs to your sovereign mind. Lesson 6. Now we reach the root level. Why do insults actually hurt? Not the surface reason, but the deep, uncomfortable truth. Because until you fix this, no script, no phrase, no tactic will protect you long term. You will just keep patching up open wounds. In ancient philosophy, there is the idea of the uncarved block, raw wood in its original state, containing endless possibilities. The moment you carve it into a specific shape, you define it, limit it, and make it easy to break. Marcus Aurelius asked himself every night, "Who am I when no one is watching? When there is no crowd, no praise, no critics? What is left?" Your worth is not created by public opinion. It is built by the choices you make in secret, the discipline you keep when no one sees, and the code you honor when it costs you real money or comfort. An insult can only hurt you if it hits an unfortified part of your self-regard. When someone calls you weak, untalented, or a failure, and you lie awake at night tortured by those words, they didn't create that pain. They simply stumbled onto a fear you were already harboring about yourself. Treat every insult that burns as valuable intelligence. It is showing you the exact spot where your self-regard is still weak, where you are still relying on validation from strangers to feel secure. If you know with absolute certainty who you are and what you stand for, an insult carries no weight. If someone walks up to you right now and screams that you have bright green skin, you don't get angry. You laugh because you know it isn't true. Treat every attack with that exact same level of irrelevance. Lesson 7. The amateur attempts to block an attack. The master lets the attack hit their shield and uses its energy to power their next move. This is the Stoic art of emotional transmutation. Marcus Aurelius wrote one of the most famous Stoic maxims in history. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. When someone targets you with disrespect, betrayal, or sabotage, they think they are placing an obstacle in your path. If you are weak, it stops you. If you are a Stoic, that attack becomes the exact fuel you use to reach your next level of achievement. When someone doubts your capacity, do not argue with them. Use their doubt as intense focus during early mornings and late nights. When someone excludes you from a group, do not beg to be included. Use that isolation to build an empire so formidable that they eventually have to apply to enter your world. Marcus Aurelius was surrounded by political enemies who wanted him dead. He didn't execute them out of emotional spite. He used their continuous plotting to refine his own vigilance, self-discipline, and leadership. Their malice made him a legendary emperor. Stop weeping over human malice. Start converting it. Every insult is raw kinetic energy thrown at you for free. Do not throw it back. Absorb it. Process it through your internal engine and output relentless focus, higher standards, and untouchable results. The ultimate revenge is not a clever comeback. The ultimate revenge is becoming so successful, calm, and fulfilled that your existence completely baffles your enemies. Lesson 8. Every time you fall apart over a rude comment, a bad email, or a minor social betrayal, it is because you have lost perspective. You have pulled the conflict so close to your eyes that it blocks out the sun. The Stoics practiced a mental visualization called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius would regularly visualize stepping out of his body, floating high above Rome, looking down at his palace, the city, the empire, and the entire globe. From that altitude, armies look like tiny ants. Huge conflicts look like microscopic specks of dust. Marcus reminded himself that in 100 years, every senator attacking him, every enemy plotting against him, and Marcus himself would be dust under the soil, completely forgotten by history. Try this exercise right now. Take the person currently irritating you, the one who made that rude remark, the one who betrayed your trust. Zoom out. See them standing in your workplace or city. Zoom out further. See the entire continent. Zoom out until Earth is just a tiny pale blue dot floating in an infinite cold cosmos. How important is their little comment now? How much of your brief, precious life energy are you going to spend worrying about a tiny speck of dust, making noise on a rock flying through space? Zero. When you step back into your local reality, you carry that vast cosmic distance with you. Their attacks shrink from major crises down to absolute insignificance. Lesson 9. Why are modern human beings so fragile? Why does a snide comment or a cold shoulder cause people to fall apart for days? Because we have made our lives so comfortable that any tiny friction feels like absolute disaster. Seneca gave this precise advice to his wealthy friend Lucilius. Set aside a certain number of days every month where you eat the cheapest food, wear rough clothes, and ask yourself, is this the condition that I feared? This is the discipline of voluntary hardship. If you regularly subject yourself to discomfort, cold showers, hard workouts, strict fasts, intentional silence, your tolerance for stress expands exponentially. When a soft, comfortable person receives a verbal attack, it feels catastrophic because they have never intentionally suffered. When a person who trains their mind and body through daily discipline receives an insult, they smile internally. They have endured far harder things before breakfast. Build physical and mental friction into your weekly routine. Train until your body aches. Fast until hunger stops bothering you. Sit in silence without your phone for hours. When you build a tough internal baseline, the lazy attacks of petty people will bounce off you like pebbles hitting a tank. Lesson 10. We have covered the long road, from understanding disrespect to zero expectations, sovereign silence, the 7-word mirror, eliminating anger, and expanding your cosmic perspective. Now, we bring all 10 components together into a single truth. Epictetus left us the definitive Stoic law. No man is free who is not master of himself. If someone can make you angry with a few words, they own you. If someone can ruin your day with a single gesture, you are their slave. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what job title you carry, or how many people follow you online. If you are emotionally reactive, you are an easy mark for anyone with a provocateur's instincts. True power is not forcing other people to respect you. True power is reaching a level of internal mastery where whether they respect you or not has zero impact on your peace, your vision, or your purpose. Walk out into the world today with a completely different posture. When disrespect comes, and it will come, do not flinch. Do not raise your voice. Do not lose your cool. Look through the attack. See the insecure, hurting person behind it. Apply the silence, hold up the mirror, and keep stepping forward toward your own greatness. You are the master of your mind. Your internal fortress is complete. Never hand the keys to your peace to anyone ever again.